What if miracles and science are not opposites, but reflections of the same divine truth? When Jesus walked on water, was it pure faith, or could nature have played a hidden role? Some scientists suggest invisible ice sheets, but does that make the act less miraculous? This journey explores how faith and science may coexist in mystery, both pointing to a God beyond human understanding. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and in that act, He spoke not only the world into existence, but also the laws that would govern it. Gravity, light, thermodynamics, the delicate balance of atoms, these were not accidents. They were part of the divine architecture. What if science is not a contradiction to faith, but rather a window into the mind of God? Too often, we imagine science and spirituality as rivals, battling for dominance in the human mind. But perhaps this is a false dichotomy. After all, the Bible itself opens with a structured sequence of creation. Light before life, waters separated, order emerging from chaos. This mirrors the scientific pursuit, an attempt to understand the how of the universe. Yet faith always seeks the why. The laws of nature are not random. They are remarkably fine-tuned, predictable, and harmonious, qualities that point to design, not chance. Scientists speak of constants: the speed of light, the force of gravity, the charge of an electron. These constants remain unchanged across the cosmos. They govern galaxies and guide the tides. But who set these constants in place? Who designed the fabric of reality so that life could even exist? Some theologians refer to this as the language of God, a term borrowed from the realm of physics, where equations like E = mc² reveal deep truths about matter and energy. In this view, God did not abandon the world after creating it. He sustains it through the laws He authored. Every natural process, from a seed sprouting in the earth to the motion of planets, echoes His ongoing will. Throughout history, great minds have believed this. Isaac Newton, one of the fathers of modern science, saw his work as a way to uncover the thoughts of God. Johannes Kepler, the astronomer who discovered the laws of planetary motion, said he was thinking God's thoughts after him. These were not men of blind faith, nor were they skeptics. They were men who saw no barrier between belief and reason. So how does this relate to miracles? Miracles are not violations of nature. They are interventions, exceptions, yes, but not irrational ones. If the laws of nature are God's handwriting, miracles are His signature. They do not break the rules. They reveal the rulemaker. Sometimes, God chooses to operate through natural processes. Other times, He chooses to suspend them or use them in ways not yet understood by human minds. When Jesus walked on water, He wasn't rejecting the physical world. He was showing mastery over it. If science someday discovers a plausible natural condition, like rare ice formations on the Sea of Galilee, that may help us understand the how, but it can never answer the why. Why at that moment? Why in front of His disciples? Why in a way that would shake their understanding of what was possible? To believe in both God and science is to recognize two sides of the same coin. One reveals the mechanism. The other reveals the meaning. God's creation includes the laws that govern water, temperature, and buoyancy. And if He desires, He can use those laws to perform something we call a miracle. This perspective doesn't reduce the power of God. It magnifies it. He is not only the God of the gaps, the one we invoke when we lack explanation, but the God of the known, the measurable, the proven. He's present in every equation and beyond all of them. In the end, science doesn't disprove God. It points toward Him. Every discovery, every molecule, every star obeys a logic, and behind logic, there is mind. Behind the mind, there is intention, and behind intention, there is love. So as we begin this journey through miracles and mysteries, we remember the laws of nature are not limits to God's power. They are part of His expression. They are not cages, they are canvases. And through them, the divine still speaks. The Bible is a tapestry woven with awe-inspiring events: burning bushes, seas parting, water turning into wine. For many, these miracles are moments of divine intervention that transcend all natural explanation. Yet, what if some of them also carried within their mystery a hidden harmony with the natural world? Could science offer glimpses, not of doubt, but of divine strategy? Let's begin with a well-known story: the parting of the Red Sea. In the book of Exodus, Moses stretches out his staff and the waters divide, allowing the Israelites to escape Pharaoh's army. It's a moment of tension, deliverance, and wonder. But in recent years, meteorologists and oceanographers have examined the possibility of a rare weather event known as a wind set-down, a natural phenomenon where powerful winds can push water away, temporarily exposing dry ground. Studies suggest that under the right conditions, such an event could occur in the shallow northern regions of the Red Sea. Coincidence? Or a divinely orchestrated use of nature's own tools? Another example comes from the book of Joshua. The sun stands still, giving the Israelites more time to defeat their enemies. Astrophysicists, historians, and theologians have long debated this moment. Some propose it was poetic language. Others consider a possible astronomical anomaly. Yet, regardless of the mechanism, the miracle lies in its purpose: a God who answers the cry of His people. Even the miracles of healing, Jesus restoring sight to the blind, cleansing lepers, raising the dead, invite contemplation. Modern medicine has made astounding progress in understanding the body. But even now, cases of spontaneous remission or unexplainable recoveries puzzle doctors. Could some biblical healings have involved divine acceleration of natural processes? Could Jesus, knowing the body in its deepest design, have simply awakened dormant functions or reversed decay with a single word? Scientists are not blind to mystery. In fact, the more they learn, the more they encounter the unknown. Nobel Prize-winning physicist Werner Heisenberg once said, "The first gulp from the glass of natural sciences will turn you into an atheist. But at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting." True understanding doesn't eliminate faith, it deepens it. But here's the key point: even if a miracle can be partially explained, it doesn't make it any less miraculous. Think of timing, think of precision, think of divine intent. Miracles are not just about breaking physical laws. They are about purpose, meaning, and transformation. A man walking on ice at the exact moment his disciples doubt him? A sea opening just long enough to escape death? A blind man seeing again after years of darkness? These are not merely physical events. They are spiritual statements. Let's not forget the miracle of the loaves and fishes. Jesus feeds thousands with what should have fed only a few. Skeptics have theorized that others in the crowd might have shared their food when inspired by Jesus' gesture. If that were true, and there is no direct biblical support for it, it would still be a miracle. The transformation of human hearts toward compassion, sparked by a divine presence. This is the essence of an integrated vision. Science may describe the process, but faith discerns the purpose. They are not enemies. They are allies in the pursuit of truth. Science explains the natural. Faith reveals the supernatural within it. Even Jesus himself acknowledged the natural world often. He taught using seeds, storms, and shepherds, elements of daily life, to point toward eternal truths. He didn't erase the world's logic. He infused it with deeper meaning. So as we examine miracles through scientific eyes, we do not strip them of wonder. We expand their canvas. We come to see that God may work with atoms as easily as angels, with winds as easily as whispers. Whether through a storm calmed by a voice or a body restored by touch, the center remains the same. God acts. God intervenes. God loves. In this exploration, We are not looking to reduce miracles to coincidences. We are seeking to understand the language God may have used to express them. And in doing so, we discovered that the divine signature is not only in the impossible, but also in the perfectly timed, the beautifully orchestrated, and the profoundly meaningful. Faith does not fear the microscope. It welcomes it, knowing that every discovery brings us one step closer to the Creator, whose fingerprints are everywhere. The universe is not chaotic. It follows rhythms, patterns, and principles so precise that entire civilizations have built calendars, machines, and spacecraft upon them. But where do these patterns come from? Who authored the elegant dance of cause and effect, of motion and stillness, of time and space? To look into the heart of science is to stare into something deeply ordered and deeply mysterious. We call them natural laws, but these laws are not created by man. They are discovered, unearthed like ancient treasures long hidden beneath the surface of perception. The law of gravity, the conservation of energy, the speed of light, mathematical constants like pi or the golden ratio. These are not inventions. They are fingerprints. The scriptures tell us, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. This is not mere poetry. It is profound revelation. The cosmos, in all its grandeur and precision, does not simply exist. It reflects something greater than itself. When we speak of God's miracles, we must first recognize that the very existence of natural laws is itself a miracle. That the universe functions with such predictability and order is not random. It is testimony. God created a world in which life could exist, grow, and flourish, and he did so through a framework of laws that reflect his wisdom. Some might ask, if God created these laws, why would he break them through miracles? But this is the wrong question. Miracles are not about breaking laws. They are about revealing the Lord behind them. A miracle is not chaos. It is command. Consider a composer writing a symphony. The music follows rules: key, tempo, harmony. But that same composer can change the rhythm, slow the tempo, or introduce a dramatic pause. Not because the rules are broken, but because they serve a greater expression. So too does God, the composer of creation, use the laws he formed, and occasionally transcends them, to communicate something divine. When Jesus walked on water, it appeared to defy the laws of physics. And yet, what is more miraculous? That he suspended a law, or that he wrote it in the first place. Every droplet of water under his feet obeyed the same laws that make up the oceans, the tides, and the rain. His act was not a violation, but a demonstration that he is not bound by the very framework he designed. Science teaches us about surface tension, density, and temperature. It explains why solid objects sink and how forces act on matter. But what it cannot explain is intent. Science tells us how the world works, but only faith asks why it was made this way, and for whom. Even more so, the laws of nature reveal the consistency of God's character. He is a God of order, not confusion. He is faithful, reliable, predictable in his essence, even when his methods surprise us. We expect the sun to rise, because it always has. We trust gravity, because it has never failed. In the same way, we can trust God's presence, even when we cannot see the full picture. Modern scientists, even those with no religious convictions, often speak with reverence when describing the harmony of nature. The late Stephen Hawking once said, "The laws of science ... seem to be very finely adjusted to make life possible." This fine-tuning has led many to suggest that the universe is not just ordered, it is purposeful. And this is where faith and science begin to converge. Not in competition, but in awe. The more we understand about how the world works, the more we begin to sense the mind behind it. The intricate structure of DNA, the expansion of the cosmos, The balance of ecosystems all point to intelligence beyond chance. This understanding deepens the significance of miracles. When God acts in a way that appears to defy nature, it is not to impress us, but to draw us closer. Miracles are divine messages written in the language of wonder. They are personal, intentional. They speak to our souls, not just our senses. So let us not reduce the natural laws to cold mechanics, nor exalt miracles as mere magic tricks. Instead, let us see both as revelations of the same divine source. The law and the exception, the constant and the interruption, all come from the same hand. In the end, every sunrise is a whisper of creation. Every heartbeat, a small miracle of design. And every miracle, no matter how astonishing, is part of a greater symphony, a reminder that God is both architect and artist, both scientist and savior. It is one of the most iconic and mysterious miracles in the New Testament, a moment that defies logic, gravity, and every law of nature. In the darkness before dawn, the disciples struggled against heavy winds on the Sea of Galilee. Then, suddenly they saw him, Jesus, walking on water. Terror filled them. Was it a ghost? A vision? But the voice was unmistakable. "Take heart. It is I. Do not be afraid." What followed became one of the most retold miracles in Christian tradition. Jesus walked upon the surface of the water, not swimming, not floating, but walking, as if the sea were solid ground. For centuries, this moment has been seen as a clear sign of divinity, of authority over nature itself. But in recent years, some scientists have offered an alternative theory, that Jesus may have walked not on liquid water, but on invisible ice. This hypothesis comes primarily from researchers in the fields of oceanography and climatology. A 2006 study from Florida State University proposed that, under rare and specific weather conditions, free-floating patches of ice could form on the surface of the Sea of Galilee. These patches, possibly up to several meters in size, would not have been widespread, but could have existed near the shoreline, hidden by the dark, turbulent water. These so-called springs ice formations could have formed when cold air from the east met fresh spring water in localized areas of the lake. The result, a sheet of ice strong enough to support the weight of a human being, and nearly invisible to onlookers from a distance, especially under low-light conditions. To some, this theory sounds like an attempt to explain away a miracle. But what if it's something else entirely? What if it is a glimpse into how the miracle might have been manifested, not to disprove it, but to deepen our awe? Even if Jesus had stepped onto a rare and vanishing sheet of ice, the moment remains miraculous. The timing, the location, the storm, the precise interaction with Peter, who also walked briefly before sinking, the emotional and spiritual message it carried to the disciples. These cannot be replicated by mere coincidence or rare weather. In fact, consider what this possibility actually implies. That God, in His sovereignty, may have orchestrated a convergence of natural phenomena, weather patterns, temperature drops, and spring water flows, to create a perfect platform for this exact miracle at this exact moment. A platform that existed for just long enough and then vanished. It would not be the first time God used nature to accomplish something extraordinary. In the Old Testament, He used wind to part the Red Sea. He used quail to feed the Israelites. He used a fish to deliver Jonah. Nature is not the enemy of the miraculous. It is often its instrument. There is also another layer to this miracle that transcends physical explanation. When Peter steps out of the boat and walks toward Jesus, he too walks on the water, until fear and doubt take hold. And he begins to sink. Jesus catches him and asks, "Why did you doubt?" This moment reveals the deeper meaning behind the miracle. It was never just about physics. It was about faith. Whether solid water or liquid sea, the miracle points to Jesus as master over fear, over chaos, and over nature itself. In biblical symbolism, Water often represents the unknown, danger, or judgment. For Jesus to stand atop it, unshaken, is a visual proclamation. He has dominion over all that threatens to drown us. If the ice theory is correct, it doesn't diminish the event. It magnifies it. Imagine the complexity required for such a phenomenon to occur. Imagine the precise alignment of temperature, wind, and water sources, timed exactly with the disciples' journey. In the pre-dawn darkness, during a storm, in a moment of desperate fear. That's not coincidence. That's divine choreography. And if the theory is wrong, if Jesus truly walked on liquid water in open defiance of gravity, then we are no less in awe. Because whether he used a natural mechanism or suspended the laws of nature, the message remains unchanged. He came to us when we were afraid. He stood where no man should stand. He lifted us when we began to fall. This is the miracle. Not just walking on water, but walking into our storms. Science may offer a hypothesis. Faith offers the truth behind it. Together, they invite us to wonder. Not to explain God away, but to seek Him more deeply, in nature, in mystery, and in every wave we fear. The New Testament is filled with moments where the natural world seems to yield to something greater, where blind men see, storms obey a voice, and the dead rise. These miracles are not merely stories. They are statements. Each one is a declaration of who Jesus is, not just a teacher or prophet, but one with power over matter, time, life, and death. But what happens when we approach these events through the lens of science? Do they lose their divine weight, or could they reveal something even more extraordinary? Let us begin with a miracle that touches the essence of joy. The transformation of water into wine at the wedding in Cana. On the surface, it's a celebration, a social rescue. Yet chemically, the conversion from water into wine, a complex liquid composed of sugars, alcohols, tannins, and aromatic compounds, is nothing short of astonishing. There is no natural process that can instantly cause such a transformation. Some may argue the wine was symbolic, or that the story is metaphorical. But to believe it truly happened is to acknowledge that Jesus, in a moment of silent authority, accelerated or replaced a process that normally takes seasons of cultivation, fermentation, and aging. He did not bypass nature. He redefined its pace. This miracle is not just about a drink. It's about abundance, transformation, and divine timing. And science, though it cannot explain it, can at least marvel at the complexity of what was made in that moment. Now consider the healing of the paralyzed man. From a modern medical perspective, paralysis often stems from damage to the nervous system, spinal cord, or brain. Recovery, when possible, is usually slow, involving physical therapy and neurological rewiring. Yet in several gospel accounts, Jesus heals with a word or a touch, and movement returns instantly. Is it possible that Jesus understood the human body beyond the capacity of any physician? Could his words have realigned neural pathways, restored damaged tissue, or reignited dormant connections? These are not conclusions, only questions. But they invite us to see the miracle not as anti-science, but as an event science may not yet be capable of understanding. Then there's the resurrection of Lazarus, a man 4 days in the tomb, beyond the threshold of any known revival. Decomposition would have begun. The heart silent, the lungs still. No modern medical technique could bring such a person back. And yet, at Jesus' command, Lazarus walks out. There is no scientific basis for such an event. No theory, no hypothesis. And perhaps that's the point. Some miracles exist beyond the reach of biology and physics, because they are rooted in love, not logic. In this case, Jesus weeps. He prays. He calls Lazarus by name. This is not merely power. It is personal. And no scientific theory can explain the force of divine compassion.
Importantly, the New Testament never portrays miracles as mere spectacle. They are never magic tricks for approval or applause. They are always tied to faith, to purpose, to revelation. Even Jesus himself is cautious, often instructing those healed not to speak of it publicly. The point is not the miracle itself, it is the message behind it. As science advances, we learn more about the human body, the brain, the environment. So miracles might be reframed, reinterpreted, even partially explained. But the timing, the context, the impact, these remain untouched. A healing in the exact moment of crisis. A storm calmed at the height of terror. Bread and fish multiplied in the presence of a hungry crowd. These are not just anomalies, they're signs of divine orchestration. Faith is not threatened by science. In fact, it welcomes it, because science can describe the complexity of a cell. But only faith sees the miracle of life. Science can map the stars, but only faith hears the whisper of purpose in the void. Together they do not contradict, they complete. We live in a time where we demand explanations. But perhaps part of the miracle is that some things resist being explained. They are meant to be experienced, not dissected. The miracles of the New Testament invite us to a new kind of understanding, one where the natural and the supernatural are not opposites, but reflections of the same Creator. Jesus, the Word through whom all things were made, did not come to cancel science. He came to fulfill truth in all its forms. So whether through wine, water, light, or breath, the harmony between science and faith can be heard in every act of divine love. And in that harmony, we find not contradiction, but completion.
There comes a point where every telescope blurs, every microscope reaches its limit, and every equation falls short. It is the edge of knowledge, the silent threshold between what is known and what is not, between the measurable and the mysterious, and beyond that threshold is God. Science is a gift. It is a method of understanding creation, a light that reveals structure, beauty, and function. Through it, we've split atoms, decoded DNA, and mapped galaxies. We've witnessed particles dance in quantum uncertainty and watched stars die in fiery explosions billions of light years away. But for all its triumphs, science cannot fully explain love, consciousness, morality, or faith, nor can it define the soul. That's because the divine operates not only in what we can measure, but especially in what we cannot. Throughout this journey, we've explored how miracles might harmonize with natural laws, how Jesus walking on water could coincide with rare ice formations, how healings and resurrections might intersect with biology and physics. But even these theories, fascinating as they are, bring us to a single, humbling realization: human understanding is limited. We stand before a universe of vast complexity and deep precision, and yet we cannot recreate even the simplest miracle from the Gospels. We can simulate the sound of thunder, but not the voice that calmed the storm. We can accelerate healing, but not speak it into existence. We can measure brainwaves, but we cannot command a soul to return to a lifeless body. This limitation is not a flaw. It is a reminder. A reminder that while science may describe the mechanics, only God gives them meaning. Only God turns water into wine and suffering into purpose. Only God steps into human time, walks across chaos, and calls us to follow. In this, we must also acknowledge a deeper truth. Miracles are not puzzles to be solved, but signs to be followed. They are not simply "how did he do it" moments. They are "who is he" revelations. Each miracle is a window, not into a trick, but into the heart of God. If we spend all our energy trying to prove or disprove the supernatural using natural tools, we risk missing the point entirely. Because the point is not to solve God, but to seek Him. And in seeking, we encounter wonder. We embrace mystery. We find faith. Perhaps that is why Jesus often refused to perform miracles on demand. When the Pharisees asked for signs, He declined. When Herod expected a spectacle, He gave silence. Because faith is not born from control, it is born from trust. Trust in what we cannot see. Trust in what we cannot always explain. This is not a rejection of science. It is an expansion of it. True science remains humble. It recognizes that each answer leads to a deeper question. And true faith is the same, not blind, but open-eyed, willing to walk into mystery and still believe. Some things we were never meant to fully understand, not because they are false, but because they are too vast for minds shaped by time and space. Like a fish trying to comprehend the sky or a shadow trying to grasp the sun, our minds can glimpse but never grasp the totality of God. And yet we are invited to believe, to wonder, to trust. So, when we read of Jesus walking on water, or healing the sick, or rising from the grave, we can let science offer its possibilities. But we must also let faith hold the final word. Because the greatest miracle may not be what happened back then. It may be what happens now in us when we believe. We do not need to choose between science and God. We need only to remember that science is man's way of exploring creation, and God is the creator still. At the edge of every discovery, at the bottom of every mystery, in the silence between questions, there he waits, beyond comprehension, beyond time, beyond even the miracle. God